What's up, y'all? You're listening to the Extra Point College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Carnes, joined as always by my co-host, Daniel Hammock. Daniel, week 9 was loaded. A lot of good games on Saturday, a couple more games as candidates for Game of the Year. So another fun Saturday and a great Saturday for us because it ended with the Atlanta Braves going up 3-1 in the World Series, and we're recording this at it is 2:54 on Sunday. Game 5 tonight. The Braves have a chance to clinch at home. So
well, it's
big
bright
Sunday
behind
for
me,
us.
y'all. You can't, you might have trouble seeing my face. I'm going to stand very still so I can, because the light behind me, we're normally recording at night. So usually not an issue, but hey.
Had to adjust because the Braves.
We're doing it. We're doing it. Like everybody
we
makes their
weren't
own
going to run up
sacrifice.
against the Braves.
Yeah, as our pastor called for, prayer and fasting throughout the day so the Braves can take home the W.
Let's start here, Daniel. The Braves are in the World Series, and for fans of the Braves, a lot of them in our state are also fans of the Georgia Bulldogs, right? And the Braves have a chance to, is there a curse on Atlanta sports, on Georgia sports? There might be, and the Braves have a chance to break that curse. And at the same time, the Georgia Bulldogs are 8-0, and they're coming off of a big win over their rival Florida. A great
struggle
day.
27-point win.
And that's where I kind of wanted to go with it, right? What a great day for fans of both teams, right? Got to be exciting. Georgia had their worst offensive performance of the season so far, and they won by 27 points. Not only did they win by 27 points, they scored 34. Like, again, this wasn't an offensive struggle where you scored 17. You scored 34, and an offense that ranked top 5 in every metric, like SP Plus being the one that a lot of people look to as, the advanced metric ranking. A top 5 offense in SP Plus, you hold to 7 points, and those 7 points actually came in garbage time. So if you adjust for garbage time, Georgia held this team scoreless, but they gave up 7. I mean, Daniel, I feel like a lot of people are talking about Georgia and this defense being historic and this team being special. If you haven't acknowledged it by now, it's time to acknowledge just how special this team is, just how special this defense is. And as a college football fan, turn on this defense on Saturdays because, man, it's fun to watch.
Yeah, it's odd to say because most people they're tuning in for the offense. We think about defensive matchups. I think about what they call it, the game of the century with LSU and Alabama.
LSU,
it was like
2011.
9-6 or whatever. Yeah. And then obviously they rematched in the national championship that year. But in that game, I remember thinking, I just love this. I love watching, two great defenses. Now you look back, LSU may have also been inept on offense at that time too, but
maybe just a little bit.
Just something to keep in mind. Put a bookmark there. But this Georgia defense is just they do it in an exciting way. So this game, Georgia actually gave up several yards. As far as they actually were outgained in the game by 1 yard. Dan Mullen, this offense, they had some success getting first downs and moving the ball a little bit. And really, I think, honestly, it helped the field position overall as a whole. Now, there was some issues with field position, like after Stetson Bennett threw an interception and the Florida player decides to bring it out of the end zone, gets tackled on the 2. That ultimately led to a sequence of plays that really completely turned this game on its head, because that's one thing with these games against Georgia or these historic, Alabama teams of the past where, Barton Simmons coined the phrase, the boa constrictor. They just squeeze the life out of you. And so it's like kind of slow playing the whole game. And then it just kind of, when it breaks. And it was like, Nolan Smith ripped the ball out on a play where they were running quarterback power with Anthony Richardson, and he had a first down, and he's just running through guys. And because of the new forward progress rule, where you can continue to push, that was one that it actually benefited Georgia because it gave them time to strip the ball out. Nolan Smith gets the ball like next play or two. I think it was 2 plays. Georgia scores. Ensuing kickoff, ensuing possession. Florida throws an interception to Nolan Smith. It gets tipped to him. Georgia scores there, and then a pick six. So you go from 3-0, and in 2 minutes, 24-0. That was just an extreme, turn of events, led on by, I think, extreme pressure that Florida was under to just give their best shot against Georgia. And then also, they finally started the quarterback that all Florida fans have been asking for. And you and I have even said, hey, when are you going to play Anthony Richardson? He's clearly the high upside guy. He played, he showed that he's got a lot of skill, but some of those freshman mistakes kind of caught up to him.
I kind of said, I realized before the game, number one, he's the better quarterback, but is this really where he deserves his first shot, is against this defense? And that's what kind of worried me, was maybe you go with the guy with more experience against the Georgia defense, because that's a heck of a first test. It's against this defense. I kind of feel bad for him. Now, I was about to pull a stat for you. Oh, yeah, total yards you mentioned. The total yards, they outgained Georgia by a yard. Florida ran 22 more plays than Georgia did. So, yards per play is what's impressive. Georgia held a team that averaged 7.4 yards per play coming into this game to 4.5 yards per play. It's, again, everyone wonder what's going to happen with this defense when they play an elite offense. They haven't played a lot of elite offenses yet. Florida's an elite offense. They're an elite rushing offense. And they got 161 rushing yards. A lot of this came in the fourth quarter. But this defense continues to show that they're the best. I think they're the best offensive or defensive unit in the country. They're just the single best unit in the country by a lot. And so this defense is historic. This defense is special. And to do it against modern offenses, I think is pretty special. So Georgia, number one. They'll be number one on Tuesday, which we'll talk about here in a minute. Let's go to the Big Ten, Daniel. This was a classic game. Michigan State, Michigan.
Dude.
I mean, cold, rainy, gray skies at
overcast.
noon.
Yeah, perfect.
I mean, 2 smash mouth offenses. Now, Michigan State's been a little bit more explosive. We talked about going into the game. You and I both laid the points of Michigan. I still can't believe Michigan State came back, to be honest with you. I mean, to be up 16 in the third quarter, I mean, I didn't think that was possible given the style of play these teams play. Credit to Michigan State. This is a team that I think both deserves and will be in the top 4 on Tuesday night.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, they played their butts off. Hats off to Mel Tucker. I think Kenneth Walker stamped his ticket to New York. I don't know if he's going to win it, but, I mean, he'll be there now at this point.
Yeah.
He's going. He had his Heisman game. I mean, 5 touchdowns. Every touchdown he scored for Michigan State. But I want to let you talk about Michigan State. I do want to end on, though. Am I more impressed with Michigan after this game? Yes, I am more impressed with Michigan after the loss.
Yeah, it's because you didn't know Michigan could win this type of game, or can play this type of game where they're scoring back and forth, and they have they have to kind of go score for score with somebody. They did a good job there. So you and I go through and we give our long plea saying that we think Michigan's going to win. They're just a better team. This was the toughest one for me to have a beat on. When I watched College Game Day that morning and they interviewed Mel Tucker, immediately after that, I was like, I picked the wrong team. I think Tucker has this team ready to go. He's just that kind of guy. He's just, Trevor Moawad, It Takes What It Takes, the book he wrote. He recently just passed away. He's been a motivational speaker and just a mental coach that a lot of these schools have hired. Trevor Moawad. So he's done a lot of that kind of stuff. One of the main things he talks about is the aggregate of marginal gains. And that's just talking about everybody getting a little bit better, and it leads to the team getting a lot better as a whole. And when I saw Mel Tucker mention that multiple times, I was like, yeah, this team's just got the right mindset going into games like this. He already beat Michigan last year. He's not losing again. They're going to beat him again. So I told my wife, Katie, she was doing we have picks on the other side that we do. I mean, I feel like I do picks all day. That's all I'm doing is picks.
We got a lot of picks.
Yeah, we got a lot of picks going on. Anyways, these picks we were doing, she hadn't done them yet. It was before noon. I was like, hey, you want to go ahead and do your picks? And then she said, hey, what did you end up picking on this game? I said, well, I picked Michigan, but I tell you what, I would not pick them now. And she said, give me Michigan State. So she got the pick right because she knew what she was doing. Of course, I influenced that. But Jacob, if I told you that Peyton Thorne, to win this game, I thought you're going to need a big day out of Peyton Thorne, quarterback of Michigan State. I was like, there's no way they're getting out of here with him having a subpar day or an average day. Kenneth Walker's good, but you got to be balanced. If I told you that he threw for 196 yards and 2 picks, 0 touchdowns, you think they're coming away with this win if I told you that beforehand?
No, and this is why I walk away more impressed with Michigan. Like, Michigan State's better. They beat him on the field. That's that. I'm impressed with the win. Kenneth Walker, 5 touchdowns. Incredible. And I watched the game, right? So I know how it played out. But I'm looking at the box score and going, how did Michigan lose this game? And I'm looking at the drive chart, and I mean, here it is. Like, now Michigan State in the second half, Michigan got all their scores in the first half, and then they scored their first possession of the second half. Michigan did. Michigan State gets 2 quick touchdowns. I say quick touchdowns because they scored in 2 minutes, but they scored in 2.5 minutes on 9 play drives on both drives. Pretty impressive.
That's crazy.
And then, I mean, Michigan's last three drives, or 4 drives, I'll say, field goal, fumble, turnover on downs, interception. When they kicked that field goal late, instead of going for it on the Michigan State 18, I was like, field goals don't win football games. And it came back to bite them. But again, why do I walk away more impressed with Michigan? I wondered, Michigan State has an identity. We said that going into the game. They've had an identity all season. This is a team that averaged 240 rushing yards a game. What happens if someone takes that away from you? Because they have been pretty one-dimensional to this point. They've passed when they need to. They've been efficiently passing when they need to. They run for 146 yards. They throw for 406. They threw for 406 yards. Cade McNamara threw for 383 yards, 2 touchdowns. J.J. McCarthy threw a touchdown in this game. They played both quarterbacks effectively.
Yeah.
Like, they threw for 406 yards and lost the game. If you had told me going in, Michigan's going to throw for 406 yards, I'm like, oh, shoot. Like, they won by 10 or 20. Like, if they're going to throw for that many with this kind of team, So, hey, credit to Michigan State, because I'm still scratching my head looking at this box score. Like, it's still blowing me away, and I watched the game. Oh, goodness.
Amazing.
Great game. A great candidate for game of the year. Daniel, let's stay in the Big Ten. Ohio State 33, Penn State 24, another ranked matchup this day. Hey, credit to Penn State. I don't know if they just didn't game plan for Illinois last week, because they sure as heck came prepared to play Ohio State this week. To hold Ohio State to 33 points, I think, is incredible by any team, because this is an offense that is really efficient when it's clicking. CJ Stroud, again, I mean, he threw for 300 yards. Travion Henderson ran for $152. But did Ohio State, they struggled in the red area? And I think Penn State has a really good defense, so I think that plays into it. Bottom line is Penn State couldn't score enough to keep up with Ohio State. And when Sean Clifford throws the ball 52 times, I just don't think that's how Penn State wins football games. But what were your biggest takeaways from this game, Daniel?
Yeah, I think that Ohio State, they did good because this is the type of game under Urban Meyer that they would have lost. So they would have lost this game. But Ryan Day, I think, is very much I just trust him as a coach as far as his composure. Like, he realizes it's not their best game. He kind of reels it in, and they give the ball to Travion Henderson 28 times. Like, I think that there's something to be said about getting out with a dub. You know, they knew that they did the wrong thing by wearing the all red jerseys. Jacob, you said it on Twitter.
They'd have been up 21-0.
They would have won by 30 points if they wore their regular home jersey. So, but they wore the all reds, so he knew they messed up. And he said, look, we got to get out of Dodge. Look, CJ
I should
Stroud
have
had a
taken
good
Penn
game.
State plus the points when I saw this jersey.
CJ,
That's dumb
CJ
me.
Stroud, he threw for 300 yards. He only threw one touchdown. It just wasn't meant to be as far as him just really having the production there. But Travion Henderson, I think, you're only looking at 5 yards a carry because he had 150 yards or so. So that's something to keep in mind. It's not something spectacular like, oh, they had an 8-yard carry game or a 10-yard carry game, something crazy. He wasn't just ripping them apart. He had his good runs here and there, but I just think that being able to turn and trust a true freshman and hand him the ball like that, I think you're going to really see that benefit over the course of the season. You also saw a little bit more from their defense. I don't know if it was the fact that it's Penn State and their offense, and maybe they're a little more inept, or that Sean Clifford isn't quite the guy. But anytime you get a defensive score, that's a big deal. But think about that. It took a defensive score for them to be able to beat Penn State by 9 points. So that's something to keep in mind when you're looking at this. Something to kind of put just a little footnote as we go towards Tuesday when we have the rankings released from College Football Playoff Committee. They're going to take everything into account. Obviously, we think they're probably going to rank Ohio State behind Oregon because of the loss to Oregon and all that. But as far as, this game, they're going to take some context into this. Like it's not, it wasn't the cleanest, easy win against the Penn State team that we really don't have, definitive answer on yet. I feel like there's some weeks where they look like they're one of the best teams in the conference, and other weeks where it's like a bunch of head scratching, play calls or whatever it may be. Execution.
Ohio State had 12 drives. They had 1 3-and-out. So, I mean, but here's the thing. They kicked 4 field goals in the red zone. So that's where you see 33 points and it's like, man, I'm sitting here going, they're going to score 40 at least. And there's your answer. They had 1 turnover on downs on the Penn State 13. So
I mean, that's a potential 49-point game if those are touchdowns.
And your turnover on downs on the Penn State 13, that's a field goal. I mean, again, there's points there. On the other side, though, Penn State only had 1 3-and-out all game. So I think there's still some question marks for Ohio State defensively. But again, I'm looking at their schedule, and I'm only circling 1 game where I think a team has a chance to beat them. And I hate to even give any hope to this fan base because I know how this rivalry is gone. But again, I say, I walk away from the Michigan State-Michigan game feeling more confident that Michigan has a shot against Ohio State than I did going into the game. That's all I'm going to say.
This could be a fun year. Okay.
We're going to get it in 4 weeks. If Jim Harbaugh beats, we can't get there yet.
Happy Thanksgiving. You know what I'm saying?
Last game I wanted to talk about, Daniel, the other ranked matchup. Auburn and Ole Miss. This was on our picks. You and I were on opposite sides here. I joked with, we're all talking about 11-1 Ole Miss, and no one's really giving any attention to 10-2 Auburn. And man, Auburn has turned the corner. This is not the same team that started the season. I did not give nearly enough credit to what Brian Harsin could potentially do with Auburn this season. I think he made some really good staff hires that have led to these results. Like the fact that Bo Nix is a different quarterback. I mean, this is the best version of Bo Nix that we've seen. He played really well again this week. They're using his legs to his advantage. It's not frantic like it was early in the season, like against the LSU game, I think, where it was just like some miracle plays. They're using some bootlegs really, really well. 22 of 30 for 276. He's not putting up Ohio State numbers, but it's efficient. And that's all it has to be when you've got Tank Bigsby in your backfield. This offense is efficient. Both offenses kind of stalled late in the second half of this game, but on their first 5 possessions, they scored 4 touchdowns, Daniel. When you score early and often, that's you're going to be successful. And they beat an Ole Miss team. They hold an Ole Miss offense that has been very explosive to 20 points, including the Ole Miss's last 5 possessions either ended in a turnover on downs, interception, and 1 field goal. They shut Ole Miss down the second half.
Yeah, it's a partly athletic profile. Just they have more talent on their roster than Ole Miss, and then they did get Matt Corral came out for just a little bit, but I'm not sure how it affected him mentally the rest of the game, him coming back in. Not that I don't think it would matter. Like something you said, I don't know if you just said it or if it was something we were talking about before we started recording, but Auburn loses the turnover, the the turnover game, and they still win by 11. Like that's extreme. That's an extreme, stat. That's something that's a real, indictment on how this game went. Obviously, Auburn playing at home is just a good situation for them. They're very comfortable there. Teams do not like to go play there. You've really got to have a lot going for you if you're going to go in there and beat Auburn. So, I agree with you 100% on Bo Nix. I think that the talent's always been there. You and I have both always said that, really. But it's kind of like this first couple years, under Gus and that offense, it just kind of looked like frantic. And then the beginning of this year, I remember, I guess I expected it to change overnight, but I was like, he's still frantic running around. He's not doing, what I would have hoped he was doing, where he's looks like more of a developed, more not necessarily finished product, but at least a product that's, close to being finished, where it's getting refined, that kind of look to it. But I think Bobo and Harsin have done a great job. I started thinking about the value of this, Jacob. Like Bobo, a lot of times people just credit the offensive coordinator, but having a guy like Harsin to he's getting both of them. He's not just getting one.
Right.
So you've got two really good, quarterback gurus, really able to speak into him and really mold him. And he really, what was it, the Georgia State game where he gets pulled for TJ Finley, and then they obviously bring him back for LSU, and
he was injured.
He has a great, he was injured. He has a great game against LSU. They win that game. Honestly, played well against Georgia, despite just, everybody's doing that to Georgia. They're just getting ran through, and then he's been great ever since. That obviously that Arkansas game was phenomenal, and then this game was very, very good. So I just think he has turned a corner. And if you get this kind of Bo Nix, like you said, they've got a two-headed monster in that backfield that can just do it. They've got a run-blocking offensive line that can just, get guys, some space to run. Shoot. The receivers are finally making plays on offense. And they've got a talented defense as far as, player profile. So, Mason kind of doing his thing with them over the course of the rest of the season. This is we actually do have to say, watch out for Auburn, and the fact that Alabama is going to have to make a trip into Jordan-Hare. So
where they haven't won since when, Daniel?
Since 2015. And honestly, they lost in 2013. I know that was the kick six, but that's 3 of the last 4 trips they've lost in Jordan-Hare, which is, again, not an easy place to play. So
now, here's where it gets tough. Auburn has 4 games left. They are 6-2. All right. Tell me how many games of these they win. They go to Texas A&M this week.
Yeah.
They got Mississippi State the next week, who's playing really well. They go to South Carolina November 20th. Then they got that game with Alabama. What's the record?
I think the Texas A&M game, especially being at Kyle Field, I think that's a very, very difficult game. Mississippi State, can we just say, like, I feel like I've just not thought of them for more than 10 seconds after that first game they played this year, but they have been a strong, tough out by anybody. And
they're ranked in my rankings. Most
of the time I don't take Mike Leach seriously, but you really have to throw that factor out because he is a good coach and they do have good players. And they're still an SEC team that can beat some folks. So it is what it is. They beat Kentucky this week, which was impressive. I think that they will definitely beat South Carolina. So that's a win. I think the other 3, if I would probably lean towards Alabama being a loss, and then the other 2 are toss-ups. So a betting man, I'd say 2-2. I'm a little bit more high on Auburn. I would say I think they go 3-1 in that.
3-1. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then they go 3-1.
And 4-0 is not off the table. So I mentioned it What happens when we have 10-2 Auburn? Like that Sugar Bowl, baby. That's what happens.
Would they not go? They would go to the SEC championship, would they not?
No, you're right. They control their own destiny. They could win the West if they win out. They win the West if they win out.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. Yeah, they do control their own destiny in the SEC West.
Because the head-to-head would be Bama, and then
they would that would be
losses.
Bama's second loss.
That'd be wild.
And A&M technically controls their own destiny. No, they don't. They need Bama to lose one more.
Right.
Never mind. Auburn does control their own destiny in the SEC West. Daniel, the playoff rankings come out on Tuesday. Give me your prediction, man. 1, 2, 3, 4. What's it going to be?
Okay, so I do know that Georgia will be number 1. I think that most people would probably put that. After that, it does get a little bit difficult. I'm with you. I think that Michigan State is in the top 4. I'm trying to decide if they're going to give them, a ton of credit, if they're going to be like number 2 or if they're going to be number 4 and be kind of like barely hanging on there. I think Alabama's in the top 4, and I think Oklahoma's in the top 4. I think Oklahoma's probably number 4. I think that they probably are, because they've been struggling with some teams that they probably should have put away a little easier. I think the perception is Oklahoma's doing less with more, and Michigan State's doing more with less. So I would say I think Michigan State's probably going to be ahead of them. Maybe let's go Georgia, Alabama, Michigan State, and then
Oklahoma.
Just say Oklahoma. Yeah.
All right. I think it's going to be the same top 4. Yeah, in that order. Georgia, Alabama, Michigan State, Oklahoma. I'm just looking at like who you've beaten. And I know that being undefeated is going to matter. Like winning all your games matters, but it depends on how you rank it. Like Bama and Michigan State both have 1 win over currently ranked teams. Like Bama has the 1 loss on the road.
Do you think Cincy will be top 6? Like, do you think that they're going to be that high, or you think they're going to drop them down maybe 8 or 9?
I think they'll be 7.
Okay.
It depends. Here's the thing. This is people we're talking about. And again, someone needs the logic of, since he is ranked in the top 4 in every AP ballot, therefore they should be ranking the top 4 of the college football playoff. And if they're not, then this thing biased and worked against them. Here's the thing. No. AP are people, and they want the group of 5 to have a shot. And so they're just doing it based on where they have teams ranked. When teams lose, you drop them below undefeated teams. That's how the AP has always worked. Since he has yet to be ranked in my top 4, since he has yet to be ranked in my top 6 all season, I actually agree with Mackenzie Milton. I think this Cincy team, number 1, is not as good as last year's Cincy team, nor do I think they're as good as 2017 UCF, nor do I think they're as good as 2015 Houston. Like, there's been some good group of 5 teams that got left out for whatever reason. I think they've gotten the top 4 right every year, but this is not the best group of 5 team to ever play. Like, in the college football playoff era, they're not. And so the win over Notre Dame is huge.
Yeah.
So I think that there is a chance they're 5 or 4 because they do have the same amount of ranked wins. Actually, they have more ranked wins than Oklahoma does. It depends on it's so difficult. If you count from the time they played, Oklahoma has more ranked wins. Current ranked teams, Cincinnati has 1, Oklahoma has 0. Like,
well,
but the rest of their
as
schedule,
far as if it's is Cincinnati the best group of 5 team we've seen? I would agree. I think that especially a couple of those UCF teams, I think we're just like some of the best I've ever seen. But it's also, are there 4 other teams that are for sure better than them this season? So that's one thing to consider. And we're not there yet. That's to be determined, I think, over the rest of the season. But I think there probably are 4 teams that are better than Cincinnati. But that's at least more or less the question, not like, hey, is this the best group of 5 team that there has been? Because I don't even think that.
So Jeff Sagarin's rankings, he's a big numbers guy. You want to know where he ranked Cincinnati's strength of schedule so far?
Like 50th?
94. So there's your argument for, and that's the thing. All wins are not created equal. They're not. Like, and it's just for comparison, Georgia, 24. Alabama, 18. Ohio State, 43. Oklahoma, 70. And that's, again, 24 spots ahead of Cincinnati. Like Michigan, 35. Notre Dame, 9. Oklahoma State, 29. Auburn, 27. Penn State, 11. Wisconsin, 3. Like, all these, like, their strength of schedule does not compare even a little bit, even though they played Notre Dame and Indiana. So I don't think it's rigged against them. The goal is to pick the top 4 teams. The problem is, we've talked about this, Daniel, good teams, when they play inferior teams, what do?
Oh,
They
beat
blow them
Yeah.
the heck out. Look at Georgia when they played Vanderbilt, 62-0. Like, and again, this is where the argument for Oklahoma actually is going to come into play. Oklahoma didn't blow out Kansas. So I think there's a chance Oregon slips in at 4 ahead of Oklahoma. I think there is a chance because they have that quality win against Ohio State. Like, I don't know. We'll see. I do not think Cincinnati is one of the best 4 teams. I do not think the committee is going to put them there, but I also don't think there's an agenda to get the group of 5 out. So that's where I'm at with it.
I agree. We'll have to see what they do.
But you can follow Daniel on Twitter at DeepSouthDaniel. You can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Carnes with a K. And that will do it for this edition of The Extra Point. He is Daniel. I am Jacob.